take two on the July wrap-up. I did try and film this on time. I'm now way late, but it's not my fault. I tried filming this in the first week of August, and my camera just was an asshole that day and turned off after I was almost done filming the entire thing, and it didn't save any of it. So I now have to redo it, and I just have not had the time until now. So, super late, my bad. But we're here now, and that's all that matters. Also, I'm going to be doing my wrap-ups going forward a little bit differently. As I've mentioned many times, I feel like I really don't like filming or editing wrap-ups. I find them to be really tedious. I love watching them, and I do love having them on my channel because I like having a consistent video that just has everything summed up for the entire month. I also love talking about stats and that kind of thing, and it feels like a nice way to kind of refresh for the next month, even though the next month is already almost done now, but that's besides the point. So yeah, I like having the video. I just really hate filming it and especially editing it. And then add on the fact that pretty much every time that I film a wrap up, something goes wrong. Usually my battery's dead or my SD card is full, but sometimes, like last time, my camera just shuts off. So I've been watching a lot of Books and Lala recently, and I really like how she does her wrap-ups because they're very quick and snappy, and she doesn't really spend much time doing synopses and like a full-on review for every single book. And her and I read a pretty similar amount of books in terms of quantity, and she also does some fun superlatives at the end of her videos as well. So I'm going to try and do things her way and see how I feel about that. And I'll of course leave her channel linked down below as well if you want to check her out. If you're one of the, I'm sure, very few people who don't already watch her videos, her channel is massive. So without further rambling, let's get into the wrap up. As always, I'll start with my stats. So in July, I read a total of 15 books and DNF'd 1, which gave me a grand total of 4,939 pages with 61.5 hours of audiobook listening. This was very nearly my worst month of the year. My actual worst month was March, and I only beat March by less than 100 pages. So this was not the best month for me. I still read quite a bit. Obviously, 15 books is amazing, and I'm not like mad about that or anything. But in terms of what I normally do, and also especially in terms of the quality, this month it kind of felt like a flop for me. I did read some really good books. I had a 5-star this month, but I read quite a few 3 and 3.5 stars, which is still a good rating. But for me, like a 3-star is just, I liked it enough to finish it, but I didn't love it. And I of course want to love everything that I read, and that just didn't seem to be the case. And on top of that, a lot of those 3 stars were books that I was so hyped for. They're books that I was really looking forward to for such a long time, and I finally got around to them, and they were just kind of mid. So, not the best month for me, but that is okay. So let's get into the books, starting of course with the DNF for the month, which was sadly The Baby Dragon Cafe. I've heard not great things about this book since it came out. I was hearing people say that it was pretty cringy and awkward and not a good time, but I was hopeful because this premise sounds fantastic to me. It sounds like it's right up my alley, and in theory it is. However, the reviews are correct. I love a good cringe anything. I love people who are weird and out there and quirky. That is my jam. However, this was not that. This was just kind of bad. So unfortunately for me, this was a DNF. I gave it a decent shot. I got to about page 70, so that is a good enough try for me to know that it is not the book for me, but hopefully the book for somebody else. Moving on, starting in July, I decided to actually stop rating certain kinds of books, so I'm no longer going to be giving a star rating to nonfiction and poetry, just because I don't read a lot of those, and I really have no idea how to accurately talk about them or rate them in a way that I think feels fair. For pretty much any nonfiction, I always feel like I have to give it 5 stars because most of the nonfiction that I read is memoirs, and I feel guilty giving a memoir less than 5 stars because it's somebody's life, and that just doesn't feel right to me. So I'm just no longer going to rate nonfiction, which brings us into the next book, which is Sister Outsider by Audre Lorde. My friend started a book club this month called Books, Babes, and the Revolution, where we read queer feminist nonfiction, and this was our first book. This was a fantastic read. It was very insightful. I learned a lot from it, and I would definitely recommend if you haven't already read this one. Lucky for me, I had no 1 stars and no 2 stars this month, so that is great. I love that. So going on to my 3-star reads, there are a few. So my just solid 3-star reads were Sing Anyway by Anita Kelly, Direct Descendant by Tanya Huff, which I'm really sad about because this one I was so looking forward to. This is a queer cozy horror and the premise is so much fun. It says that it's set in Toronto, but it's actually not. It's set in a really small town like 5 hours north of Toronto, and it's set in this small little town where the entire town is kind of at the mercy of this eldritch god that they made a deal with, and it protects them and kind of keeps their whole area beautiful and peaceful for them. It has a lot of dark humor to it. It was really fun in that way, and it was definitely a good book. Like, I did enjoy it, but I had such high hopes for this one that it just was kind of a letdown. The first half of this was way beyond a level of silly that I was anticipating, to the point where it was just kind of dumb for a bit, but once I kind of got used to that, it did get better, but it took me quite a while, and I almost DNF'd this book a few times actually. And then I also gave 3 stars to A Dark and Hollow Star, which I'm also so sad about. This one is also set in Toronto. I posted a vlog in July where I read a bunch of fantasy and sci-fi set in Toronto, and this one plus Dark Descendant were both part of that vlog, and this one was a colossal letdown. Again, almost DNF'd several times. Probably should have. The first half of this book was fantastic, and then it was swiftly downhill from there. But because the first half was so good, I kept reading it because I was waiting for it to get really good, and it just never got there. This felt really tedious and honestly kind of annoying. The characters started off really well, but just kind of felt really one note and flat for me. And overall, this was a serious letdown, and I'm so sad about it because the cover is so beautiful. It's set in Toronto. There are some really, really cool elements in here. How the fairy court was done is so cool. Like I mentioned, it's set in Toronto, and the fairy court is just kind of glamored behind everything. So the characters were just walking around streets and areas that I'm really familiar with, and you get to see the city as it is, but then they kind of turn off the glamour and you see this glittering, beautiful fairy court behind it. And that was so cool and so much fun, but ultimately this book was just not good. I still gave it 3 stars because it did have those stronger elements to it, but I am definitely not going to be carrying on the series, unfortunately. And I'll also be unhauling this beautiful, beautiful book. And the last of my 3 stars was Spaceman of Bohemia, which I'm again very sad about. This one was an episode of Page to Screen that I did, and for this one I had already seen the movie before I read the book, which I know is terrible, but whatever. But I loved the movie so much. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, so I was really looking forward to the book, and the book was not terrible. Again, it still got 3 stars, but compared to the movie especially, the movie was so much better. And because I was expecting the book to be better, I had extremely high expectations for it, and they did not get met at all. I found the main character to be kind of insufferable, to be honest, but it is what it is. My 3.5 star reads included River Mumma. This was also part of my Toronto vlog. I gave 3.5 stars to book 2 in the Binti series called Home. This was a short little one. I think it was around 100 pages. I did really enjoy this, but the first book was a lot better. It was more interesting and engaging. I am interested in the plot still, and I'm looking forward to book 3, but book 2 is just a little bit less interesting for me. The Edge of the Ocean by L.D. Lapinski. This is the sequel to the Strange Worlds travel agency, which I read a couple months ago for Backlist Bash. Super fun. It had portal fantasy and pirate. This ticked off multiple boxes for me that I love to see in books, and I had a great time with this one. And then my last 3.5 star was Hammajang Luck. I think with this one it's more of a me thing than the book's fault, so I still gave it a higher rating than I was actually feeling. For me, I was feeling like it was more of a 3 star, but I gave it a 3.5 because I just think that I'm not a big fan of heist books. I love heist movies, but I find a book is kind of tedious after a while. I felt the same with this one as I did with River Mumma, where it just kind of felt really tedious again. So that they're just kind of going around trying to accomplish something, and things just keep going wrong for them over and over and over again, where after a while it just kind of gets boring. I think if you really like a heist story, then both of these books would be a great option for you. But this month made me realize that I don't love that kind of story as much as I thought I did, or as much as I used to at least. So those are both 3.5 stars for me. Moving on to my 4 stars. The first one was Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers, maybe? Is that what it's called? I can never think of the title of this book, but I think I got it right this time. This one really took me by surprise. I was not expecting to love it. I read this one for one of the Goodreads challenges that they do every couple of months. The whole category was to read a mystery book, and I am not a fan of mysteries. I keep trying them and I never like them and almost always DNF them. So I just picked the one off the list that sounded the most interesting to me and ended up really loving this book. This was a huge surprise for me. I really didn't expect to love it that much, but it was hilarious and heartfelt and adorable, and I had a great time with it, which I probably could have figured if I read the synopsis more carefully, because I am a sucker for a lonely elderly person finding a little family. Any kind of found family, I'm sold, but especially when there is a kind of grumpy older person involved. And that was exactly the premise of this book. So I had a blast with it, and I genuinely can't wait to read the sequel. When the Moon Hits Your Eye was also kind of a surprise. This was my first John Scalzi, and I really had no idea what to expect from it, but I definitely was not expecting how funny it was going to be. I was picturing John Scalzi as being this kind of like lit fic sci-fi kind of dude bro sort of thing, which I was really not here for. And then I read it for a book club and it ended up being hilarious and witty and just a really fun time. It was also really easy to read as well. This was so stupid and so fun and I loved it. It was gonna be a 4.5 star, but the very end of it kind of took it down a notch for me. I really didn't like the last couple of sentences of this book basically. It kind of pissed me off a little bit. So I took it down to a 4, but still a fantastic book. I also gave 4 stars to A Shot in the Dark by Victoria Lee, which is a very messy queer romance between two people who are in active recovery. The one has just moved to New York and she ends up having a one-night stand with somebody who the next day she learned is actually her new professor. So I love a good, messy, queer book. That is my jam. And this one was great in so many ways. It was also very emotional as well because of the themes of addiction, as well as the professor character. He's also transgender and has lost contact with his family due to him being trans on top of his addiction issues. So very complicated characters, really interesting storyline, and I loved seeing how this story unfolded. I also gave 4 stars to The Teller of Small Fortunes by Julie Leong. This was such a sweet story. I very much enjoyed it, but I actually don't really have much to say about it, to be honest. It's one of those stories that I enjoyed quite a lot in the moment, but it's not one that I'm going to think about really at all. I will definitely read more from this author though. And then my last 4 star was Love, Death and Robots, which is an anthology based off of the TV show. I love the TV show. It's one of my favorites. I think I've watched it like 4 or 5 times. It's such a beautiful show and the book was good, but honestly the TV show is better. And finally, the last book of the month and the only 5 star was For Whom the Bell Tolls by Jaysea Lynn. Oh my god. I completely fell in love with this book and I did not expect that at all. I read this one for a book club and honestly when I saw how long this book is, it's like 700 pages, I was really hoping that it was going to be bad. That way I could DNF it because I was not prepared to read a 700 page book this month. I was really in the mood for quick, snappy, easy, fun things and that is the exact opposite of this book. It's very long, it's very heavy, very dark, and I ate this up. Oh my god, this was amazing. This one follows our main character who at the start of the book she has just passed away from cancer and the book follows her afterlife. She spent her whole life being raised in a very religious household and she is a queer woman who is very much her own person. She does not like to be told what to do. She's kind of a troublemaker, covered in tattoos sort of thing. So she spent a lot of time being told that she was going to go to hell for her life choices. And then when she gets to the afterlife, she is so consumed by the thought that she should be in hell that she decides to just kind of go and check it out one day just to see what it's like and try and get over the fact that she feels like that she belongs there. She goes down to hell and sees that the lineup at the gates of hell is full of people who are just absolute assholes. A lot of Karens and people just generally being pieces of shit to these demons who are just trying to do their job. So she asks if they want a hand for a little bit and she sets up a help desk where the rowdiest ones come over to her to try and barter their way out of hell. And it's basically her doing customer service, except she gets to talk back, she gets to hit them, she gets to beat them up with bats, she gets to do whatever the hell she wants to these people. And it was hilarious, especially as somebody who has worked in customer service and retail my entire adult life. This was so cathartic. Just watching somebody tell an asshole Karen to go fuck themselves. Oh my god, it was amazing. And on top of that, there is a beautiful, oh my god, incredible romance in here. The romance swept me right off my feet. It had me swooning. It's been a long time since I've felt that way towards a couple in a book. It made me think of how I used to react to couples when I was like a teenager, the like fangirling kind of thing. That is exactly how it was, and I loved that. I had so much fun. And also on top of all that, there is a beautiful found family element to this book as well. I won't go into details about how that comes into play though, because that plot point is quite far into the story and I don't want to spoil it or anything, but it was beautiful. This book had me crying hysterically for so many reasons. It had me laughing and giggling and kicking my feet. This had me on a huge roller coaster of emotions and I loved every single second of it. I can't believe how good this book was. And even though it's so incredibly long, I will absolutely be reading this again. This was amazing. Alright, and those are all the books that I read in July. So let's get into some superlatives. Some of these I grabbed from Kayla's video, and a few of them are just ones that I wanted to do as well. So first of all, of course, the best book of the month obviously was For Whom the Bell Tolls. It's my only 5-star of the month. The best audiobook I think definitely goes to River Mumma. The audiobook for this was fantastic. Oh my god. So it's a Jamaican Canadian book, and the way that the narrator did the different kinds of accents was just gorgeous. Because the deity River Mumma has a like full Jamaican accent and it was beautiful, but then the other characters are all Jamaican Canadian who were born and raised in Toronto, and so they have that really specific Jamaican Toronto accent, which is a wild accent. It's such a beautiful accent, and I love the way that the narrator differentiated between the two of them, and then also just side characters. Like the narrator really put a different voice for pretty much every character, even the minor ones. Everybody had their own distinctive style when they spoke, and it was such a well done performance. The most surprising book of the month was Vera Wong, because I really didn't expect to love this one so much. Like I said before, I am not a fan of mystery books at all, but this one was amazing and I definitely didn't expect that. And then for most disappointing, I'm gonna go with A Darker Hollow Star, unfortunately, just because this book was so hyped and it really let me down. Although honestly, several books could equally fit into this category here, but I am gonna go with this one. The most memorable book I think would be When the Moon Hits Your Eye, just because it was so unique. It was such a weird, interesting concept. I don't think I've ever read anything quite like this, and I don't think I ever will again. There's definitely a lot of weird sci-fi out there, and I love that genre, but this one was just so quirky and odd, and I loved it for that. So definitely a memorable one. And then on the flip side, the most forgettable book was Sing Anyway. This was just kind of fine. It's a queer contemporary romance novella, and while this did have the unique feature of it being set at a karaoke bar, even that kind of cool setting wasn't enough to pull this book through to make it really interesting for me. The characters were very one note, and the plot was super basic, and yeah, just didn't really hit the spot for me, unfortunately. And the last superlative that we'll do is the prettiest cover. I'm a Libra. I love pretty things, so I gotta point out when things are beautiful, of course. And I'm gonna go with Hammajang Luck. I've seen two different covers for this one, and I'm specifically referring to this one, although granted, this one also beautiful. And I think either of those covers would still be the prettiest cover of the month out of everything. So this book actually wins twice for this category. And that should do it for the wrap up. I liked this much better. Even though I've actually been filming for a similar length of time that I normally do, this felt much less tedious to do. So I'm definitely going to be continuing doing things this way. Let me know if you liked this format, and if you have any other suggestions for best of and worst of, let me know down below and I'll definitely add them in next month. And finally, let me know what your best book that you read in July was. I would love to hear your thoughts. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I will catch you guys in the next video.